Hello, welcome. Welcome to Doug versus the Machine. We're in session 5 of 8. I've done 4. We're going to do 3 more. I'm going to do this every Tuesday and Thursday through the end of June. So if you want to learn more about AI and watch how I do this, come on in. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. And yeah, more fun for the next 3 sessions. Um, Hope it's been useful so far if you have joined and watched. And so it's basically a combination of me, Doug, and it's an improv. Whatever goes on, goes on. If you have things that you're working on, prompts you're working on, or let me know, and or some ideas like, hey, could you try do this? I have access to a ton of tools. Um, and I can kick these off. It'll be great to see how things flow. We're also going to do this. So it's an improv style. This is also open office hours. So ask me anything related to this AI or anything else, any part of AI or things that you're seeing going on. Yeah. So let's check some things out. So we got a few more coming up to the end of June, and I will be posting the video and on my YouTube channel at Doug Fink Videos. So you can check it out here. All right. Aaron joined, got his critter bits in the chat. Awesome. Welcome, Aaron. So yeah, I've posted the last 4 videos. So if you want to go and check out what we were talking about, they're up there ready to go. Um, and before we kick off with some cool stuff, demos, let's just real quick. My name's Doug Fink. I'm a 16-time Microsoft MVP. I wrote a book, PowerShell for Developers. I've been around the industry for 100 years. If you want to, I organize these meetups. I used to do them in person. I still do. I'll be attending some new ones in a new space that Microsoft has here in New York. Um, I don't think it's open to everybody. The next one it's going to be for partners and whatnot. So, yep, I'll be there talking about AI. But if you want to stay connected, you can get on X. I talk about this stuff a lot. When I put these videos up, I've been posting about all the things I start seeing or I see going on in the AI space and other tech spaces. So if you want to follow me there, I'm on LinkedIn. That was my YouTube channel. Head over there, subscribe, hit the thumbs up when you like something in one of the videos, and definitely hit the notification. So when you know I post other things, I don't just post these meetups. I also do 5, 10, 15-minute videos that go through concepts. It's definitely worth checking out, I believe. You can check me out on my GitHub. I put a lot of stuff up there, open source, and I still blog. So we're going to kick this off. Let's talk about, lots of things are changing. It's been a little quiet over the last week or so of any big models being updated or any new UX or DX, developer experiences or user experiences being dropped by the big names. But they've been doing stuff in stealth. For example, Anthropic just dropped something new for their Claude Code CLI, their command line interface. They put some really cool pieces in. I'm not going to talk about it. But as all these things continue to change and upgrade, they find new ways to communicate to us and they find new ways to integrate and do cool things with AI. It really comes back to these 3 principles. Some of you folks have heard me say it. I want to say it again because I think it's really a core piece. And if you can triangulate on these things, get all 3 of these dialed in, you'll hit the bullseye with eliciting the responses you want from AI, right? So context, model, and prompt. Context is like, hey, I want to give it, 50 PDFs, 200 pages each, and I want to find out, a needle in a haystack. Where in some of those, maybe it's 50 PDFs from your HR. I want to find out where do these glasses get covered by these 4 little things over here, and can AI sift through 1,000 or whatever, 50 PDFs, 200 pages a pop, and find that answer for me. So can I get the context right? Can I get the prompt right so I can let it know what I want? And it all comes down ultimately to a third piece, which is the model, right? Use the best model that you have available to you. People ask that all the time. What model should I use? Use the best one that's available to you. Don't worry about that. Um, if you can experiment with a couple of different ones, try the same context. Give it a piece of code, give it a bunch of examples, ask it a bunch of questions, set up a bunch of questions. Um, Give it to your best model or give it to a range of models. There's a bunch of free ones. You can go to Gemini on the web, ChatGPT. You can go to Grok. They all have free interfaces. Anthropic, I think they have a free one as well. Give it what you're talking about. Pick the model that they'd have, one of them, and then prompt and say, hey, I need to do A, B, C, and D with this. And then you can compare the results. If you don't get exactly what you want, change the model, right? You can change it to one that's newer. You can change to one that's older. You can reorient your prompt, right? Prompts are interesting. They're really the key to what we're doing today with AI. They can be simple, but that may not be good enough. Um, you may have to lay out goals and say, hey, I need to do this, and in order to when you do this, I need you to get to this end goal. And it's you know remember that these a lot of these interfaces, it's all about a conversation. It's not like a Google search, right? It's not like, oh, I'm searching for this. Okay, I found a bunch of links. Let me look at that. Oh, I found more information. Let me go back and search for more. No, you can have a conversation and say, hey, I'm trying to do this, or here's something I'm not understanding. And it may explain it to you, and you may want to say, hey, you know what? Explain it to like a ninth grader. And it's a conversation that you have. And then depending on the environment you're in, if you're doing it on the web, you can have a conversation. You can copy paste the results to something else. If you're doing it in a development environment, which I'm going to do some here today, um, it actually can create code for you in the IDE. So let's start with, how many do I have? Yeah, let's do one more. So I'm going to open up one more if I get this right. So I don't know how many folks here have heard about, if you've heard of MCPs, Model Context Protocol, type of one in the chat. Have you heard about this new technology? All right, Laura's has. We have 1 out of 15, Matrix, cool. Any others? All right, we've got a bunch of folks. Curtis, Kevin, good, expected that. Awesome. So MCPs are really hot. Not only is it a hot topic, but it's in a massively fast-growing ecosystem. They're really unbelievably cool. Great. Most people heard of it. This is great. Um, so I just wanted to show one of them. This one I came up with, I saw the other day. Let's see where I have it. And I'll drop this in the chat too. So Microsoft has dropped another, they've got a bunch of them out there. One of them is they have an Azure MCP. They have a GitHub MCP. So it basically exposes, they wrap up a bunch of different code in an MCP layer so that you can actually then interact with it with AI. So it's an easier, tighter integration where you're providing your code and functions that can do things. And then the AI, you're going to prompt the AI to say, hey, I need some of this documentation, or go check out all the open issues on that I have across my repos on GitHub, for example. And the AI will go, oh, I have a tool that can actually go out and find these repos or find these PRs, or I have a tool in this Docs MCP server. So let me go see what I can go find. Oh, look, I can query it, and it can come back and tell me all the different places that there's documentation. And what's cool about it is the other piece is I use it inside of here with Edit Copilot, right? I'm going to click down here on the configure tools. Here's a bunch of MCPs that come out of the box. I don't have the MCP one for the docs, but what this means is when I ask questions, it will look up in the set of tools and the MCPs that I have set up. Let's say I had docs, and I can say, find the set of docs on ABC. It would find the tool in this environment, and I can then start having a conversation about the docs. And then that becomes part of my context, right? I'm talking about context model prompt. It becomes part of my context. And then as I ground the model in my conversation, I can then say, oh, I'm looking for how to build an MCP because Microsoft has a whole bunch of documentation on that. And then as I'm questioning or chatting with Copilot over here, show me this about MCPs, it's looking up the MCP stuff that Microsoft has. It's using the GitHub stuff that I can say, hey, go check out this MCP GitHub repo. And then I can say, implement A, B, C, and D for me. And it can draw from the actual reference architectures that they've talked about. And then it starts implementing code based on the latest and greatest information. And the MCPs really make this really easy to do. And it makes it easy for us. So on that note, I just want to make a little announcement. I'm working on a workshop, probably going to be a 3 to 4 hour workshop. It will be premium, so there'll be a charge for it. And I'm going to go through, if you're interested, let me know. You can find me through the RSV page you did, or you can find my emails, or you can drop something in the chat. And basically, it's going to be 4 hours. Here's what they are. Here's how you build one. Here are examples of building one. Here's the different environments you can integrate your MCP into. Here's how you do, do auth uh, kind of coding so you can secure your MCP, stuff like that. And then you become part of playing within the system. And what's cool is not only does it work inside of things like VS Code, but it works in things like Cloud Desktop. It works, the new version of the Open AI desktops coming out. It's going to have it as well. So anyway, so go grab yourself an MCP, the docs, and you can play with that. And let's see, let's play with this one first. So somebody posted on, um, somebody posted on, I don't know, maybe it was LinkedIn, and they said, hey, I just wrote this tool in PowerShell that could actually go out against my drives, and it can come back and list out a bunch of information about the drives. And they did this little thing where they could do a nice little graph, and off it went, right? So I looked at it in my head, since I've been doing PowerShell for so many years. And I was like, that I could build that. That's not too bad. It's cool. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this image, right? And let's see what I can do down here. I have Copilot open, and I'm going to paste it in. Now you see, I pasted the image here. See it here on the lower right. Oops. Let's kick that there. And so I pasted the image. Now that becomes part of my context, right? So get rid of this. So now that becomes part of my context. Remember, we talked about context model prompt. So the model I'm going to choose, just for random sake, I'm going to choose OpenAI 4.1. You have access to Sonnet Claude models 3.5 through 4. You can get to Google's Gemini. And there's a bunch you can even bring your own, which we won't talk about, but I do have a video on that. So I pasted the image as part of my context. I've chosen the model, and then I'm going to say implement a PowerShell script to do what is in the image. Now, this is us just watching AI do its thing. Okay, so here it comes back and it says, here's a PowerShell script that replicates the drive usage visualization shown in the image. So it starts writing code. Now, the thing that's weird to me about GPT-4 is that if I'm using one of the other models, it immediately starts to put it into a PowerShell script. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So there's still, we're still looking at certain previews for this, but that shouldn't dissuade you from trying these things out. So it wrote the code, and I can copy paste it, but I'm going to say, put in a PS1. See what we get. Hopefully it'll create a file. And there we go. So script's been saved to this, and it even tells me about the warnings I got, right? Null should be on the left-hand side. It is an empty variable. That's fine. So even though it didn't get it got 99% there, fine. And I can go back and tweak that if I want to. But this is the show drive usage. Now let's see if I run this, okay. And that's kind of cool because I know one of my drives is really low on space. So I get an attempted divide by 0, which is awesome. Okay, so it didn't handle that edge case, but I'm going to copy this. Let's try and copy this error back into the prompt. It knows about what we just talked about. It knows that it wrote a script, right? So now we're going to tell it, oh, I got an error. And let's see if it can figure out. The error occurs because drive.size is 0 for some drives like empty or special drives, causing division by 0. To fix this, we'll check and skip drives where it's 0. So it figures out what the error was. It figures out where in the code it has to handle things. And it made 3 changes, right? And I can either say, I can look at this and I can eyeball this and say, that makes no sense. That looks no good. And I can undo and ask some more questions. Or in this case, I'm just going to say keep. And let's see what happens if I run this time. And it didn't quite get it right. That's unfortunate. So it just got the name of the machine. And I'm just going to try one more. Only displays. And I'm going to keep the spelling mistake. That the name of the box. So this is kind of the iteration that you, now when I did this the first time, of course, it came out of the box, it worked, and it was great. Of course, when I do live demos, you never know what happens with AI. Would you like the script to always display that or a custom label? No. So it's trying to ask more questions about the pick, and hopefully this time we'll have a better result, but if not, we'll keep going. So sometimes you get what you want. Usually you do. If I was doing this, like I wanted this to be correct all the time, I would be testing my prompts and it didn't work. So I would be testing my prompts regularly and I would put them through an eval process so I can tighten up my prompts, right? The list of prompts that I just did were pretty minimal. Like take this picture, do X, Y, Z, and then do a couple of things. I would actually walk down the path and do a whole a whole gamut of different things to make sure this is on the guardrails and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is show you something else. So here is GitHub, and Microsoft has released something called Code Agent. So you can now go in and create an issue, and I have one that's set up. So you can create yourself a new repo, and then you can come in and you can go to issues, and then you come to new issue. Now, if you're not familiar with this, because you don't use GitHub that much, it's pretty straightforward. Um, you create a repo, and then you can, if you want to create issues, you just come into the issue panel, create a new one, and then you can say whatever. I want to try or do research, and I'll misspell it. I'm not going to hit enter for XYZ. And then I can come down here. This becomes my prompt, you know, do a competitive analysis that does whatever, 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 right? And I could go down that thing, or because I'm in a repo, it knows about all the files in my GitHub. So I can say, hey, go refactor my code, or go over all my code and see if where I have issues. Or maybe somebody came in and created an issue and said, hey, you know, when I use your stuff, I use this particular library, I get an error on this, and here's where I got the error, just like what we saw. They can post that as an issue. And when you're done, or they do that, or you save it, you can come over here and you can say, set the copilot, right? And then I'll show you what that does. But instead of doing it that way, I'm going to do it this way. So I've wrapped a bunch of different things that Microsoft provides, and let's see if I can. And I happen to create it as a PowerShell tool. But what's interesting is I've also done things where I can make it as a Go or Python. But for now, we're going to take a look at this. And what it has is I can do something like new AI code agent, right? And what you can do is you just say new code agent, and I don't know, does anybody have something? What would you want to tell a code agent to do? And it doesn't have to be just code, right? It could be do an analysis, do XYZ, something simple we can do. And if you don't have anything, that's fine. Um, but if you do, we can try it. What I'm going to say is create a greet script in PowerShell, create a header for each new file. You come back with that one every week, every time we have something, Lars. I would do that, but I'm not going to have any files in this. So what I'm going to do is just off the cuff, I'm going to say CIS for something, and then I say, no, I can't do it. Apologize. Create a greet script in PowerShell and uh, implement unit tests. So this could be something I'm sending in an email, right? Now, what this is going to do is it goes out, it starts to create a session, and it will create a new repo, okay? And it creates an issue, and then it actually assigns GitHub for me. So it did everything I was kind of talking about all in one step. So if I control click on this, okay, this is the new repo that I created. It's empty, right? Basically just put a README in there. Here's the issue that I asked it to create, right? Create a greet script. And then it assigned Copilot for me. And when Copilot gets assigned, the first thing it does is it creates a PR. So you can go to pull requests, and you can see that it started working. Thanks for assigning this issue to me. So this is how you can do all this manually. You can create a repo up on the web page or any other way that you're comfortable. You can then create an issue by going to the web page, and then when you're done creating the issue, you can say assign. What I'm working on and playing with and finding really useful is that I can do this within one line of PowerShell. And I happen to be using, again, PowerShell, but I'm going to port this to Python and Go. So it can be, PowerShell is already cross-platform, but you can do this with any other language that you're comfortable with. Because these are all open tools that GitHub's had for 100 years as well. So anyway, so we have an issue. It's got assigned, right? We have a pull request, so we know it's working. We can take it kicks off an action, a GitHub action, and we can see that in play. So it does a whole bunch of different things. It pulls out the entire repo into the GitHub action, and it starts to go to work. And it loads a bunch of different tools that it's going to use, right? Because it's going to use agents and agentic workflows to get this job done. Things like string replace editors and all that kind of stuff. Things you can dive into and learn about, or you can just ignore it. And one of the things that it did is it came up with a plan. So it says, let me analyze the situation. So this is a fresh repository. Yep, I just created it. So it knows this already. I've done no programming for this. They've done no programming. They just have a bunch of agents working on this. And so it knows it's empty. And since it's minimal, I need to do steps 1, 2, 3. It's going to plan out what to do this script. And then the plan is to check the PowerShell availability and pester. It knows how to pick the proper tool for doing unit tests. If I said do this in Go or JavaScript or TypeScript, it would pick the appropriate Mocha or Jest or whatnot or whatever tools are available for testing those particular languages. And it does the correct ones for Go, and it does the correct one for Rust as well. Okay, so it's off to the races. And let's go back and take a look at the PR, see how we're doing. So now what's cool is notice it actually updated the plan inside of the PR. Now this is how we're supposed to use as developers, how we're supposed to use this. Right? If we're doing a bunch of work in our team, we would actually create a PR. We'd come up maybe with a list of things that we wanted to do, and we'd check stuff off as we went. So we're actually seeing Code Agent do all of that for us, and we're actually done. So I'm going to refresh this. I think we're done. And what happens is, oh, it's almost done. You know it's done because it goes from work in progress and it creates a nice header for you or a nice title. So it did all the different steps it wanted to, created a greet function, implemented the tests, verified the tests run successfully. The implementation includes, it tells me that. Now, this is something I never do on my projects, even when I do this for corporate America. I have no time for this. We got to knock it out. So anyway, now we're done. And it changes the title. So we're golden. When it did this, it created a branch. So what's cool is I can hit dot here inside the web page, and it will bring up the Visual Studio Code editor. So now everything's been done. It's been done in a branch. It didn't affect my existing code that's in the main. And So it pulls it up. First thing it does, because I'm in the PR, is it shows me the changes in the pull request. I can look at that, but I don't care because it's a demo. And I can go straight to the greet. And this is what it did. It built this function, right? Named it correctly for the verb noun, gave me comment-based help, commandlet binding, parameter values. I can even pipe the value in from the pipeline, and it does a bunch of stuff. Hello world. If I don't specify it, it says hello world. If not, we're good. And it then created a bunch of unit tests for me. Checks to see that the pipeline actually works, and it checks to see if I pass it in as a parameter. Um, I'm going to kick one more off as we talk about this some more. Here's one. I'm going to say, do a new code agent, right? That's the function. Implement the strategy pattern. So if you're not familiar with design patterns, there's one that's called design strategy. And I want to implement that in Python because I want to see how it looks. And the hyphen show will let all this get created. As we saw before, it creates a new repo, it creates a new issue. And then it shows me, takes me straight into see what's going on. And I can see the pull request. This is going to take a little longer. So in summary, what we saw watching AI do is we just said new agent. And we asked it to create the PowerShell script for greeting and then implement unit tests. Now, this is a very minimal prompt, but you saw how much we got out of it just from that. Now, I'm doing this at the command line. This is being all folded into and blended into right here inside of Visual Studio Code, as well as Windsurf, as well as Cursor, as well as how Claude Code is working. It's connecting into a version control system like GitHub or GitHub directly. It has options. And this is how you begin to do new coding. You prompt it with what you want, and then you can go grab a cup of coffee, wait till it all gets together, and then you can actually open it up, and then you can do all the reviewing and the curating of what you like. You can then further down here on the right say, hey, you know what? I didn't like the way you implemented this, or you might have missed that, or well, my business or my company does it XYZ way. We need to adjust. And then you can have it apply it that way. So I'm going to wrap up in a couple of more minutes. So any questions or anything? I know, Lars, you want me to try to create a header for each new file containing the file name. Do I have something really quick that I can do that? What particular programming language, Lars? Anyone? PowerShell? Doesn't matter. Oops, where did my chat go? There we go. PowerShell's fine. All right, let's try, since my show drive usage didn't work so well. So, but I think, yeah, we have that. And let me call this test.ps1, and I'll call it function YYZ. So I'm just going to put a function in here like that. And we'll do one more. I don't know. Hello.ps1 function hello. So we'll leave it at that. Now you saw the completion on that. Could we use what was just created? Could we use the one that I just created up in the repo? We could, but I'm not going to. Yes. Yes. And what I would typically do, and what I would typically do is the one that we just created. Oh yeah, we could do that, but yeah. I thought you meant, oh yeah, could we use it and do what you're asking, the new prompt? Absolutely. But I'm going to leave that because I don't want to pull it down right now. I'm not going to do a get pull. And just as we're crossing through, we can change directions 100 times here. This is the Python piece where it's going to implement a strategy pattern. So now the code agent's been running in parallel, so to speak. I can have 10 issues running on the same repo. I could have 100, and they'd all be running in parallel, which is the next level of agent workflows, how to do it all in parallel. And we'll talk about that. I'll be talking about that in July. So it comes up with a plan about creating the strategy pattern, abstract strategy interface, concrete strategies, context class. So this is everything that was from Eric Gama's work back in 1995 and a bunch of other folks. We'll get back to this maybe before I wrap and just to see what it did. So now to Lars' point, right? So now I have a bunch of these files, right? We have what? Three PowerShell files. And what did you say? Create a header. So I'm going to actually copy out of the chat exactly what you said. See if I can do that. Create a header for each new file name containing the file name, right? Just PS1s, I'm going to say, just to see what happens. Let's hit enter. I'm using 4.1, so this one gets it's a little more cautious. So it looks for PS1 files, found 3 matches, right? Tells me that I found the 3 matches, show me what it did, and then I can actually take a look. We can see test PS1 here. I can go through and look at the changes for each one, show drive, looks good. So I'm semi-impressed, right? And then I can keep all the changes. So yeah, so GPT. So this is exactly, and that's exactly right, Lars. Like what you just did. Like, hey, let's just come up with stuff. That's why I would like to do this more improv style. Throw something, right? Let's let's say we wanted to do. Let's create a header containing today's date. Now that might be a little bit more difficult because it typically doesn't know the date, but it might put a weird date in there because it knows the training date that it was trained on. So I'd have to anchor it. But let's see if we get lucky and what happens. Excellent. So the demo is working. So now it not only knew to put the date in, as we can see up here, it created the date for that, created a date for all 3 of them, created the correct date, but it also recognized or assumed that the first line that was there before was the header instead of creating another header itself. That's the kind of thing you can start getting done with this. Now, it doesn't make a difference if there's 1 file, 5 files, 50 files, right? These kinds of things will get done. I can also come back and say, we'll do this and then take a look at the strategy pattern. So none of these have comment-based help. Add comment-based help to all functions. And I'm just saying all functions. I could be in a C# or Rust or a Go or a Python workspace. And what's interesting is it will figure out what functions mean for that language and how the comments have to be done or how the help needs to be applied. So it did test, it's doing show, did hello PS1, and it's golden. It's all done. I clicked accept. So there's test, there's hello, right? Even did the parameter name, and then show drive. There we go. Unfortunately, the show drive didn't work. I'm not quite sure why. Could have taken a little bit more time. So this is how we watch and we let AI do its thing, and then we curate and we can look at things. You can get very complex with this, right? I might try 2 more things and then let folks go. It is Tuesday. Let's see, where was my, okay. So notice we don't have a work in progress, a WIP anymore for the title. So that means it tells me that we're done. And here's the implementation details it did for, remember the issue. Let's see if it's left the issue as is. All I said was implement the strategy pattern in Python. That's all I said. And it came back and here's what it did. And it actually did, I think it's pretty funny. It decided to use sorting strategies, right? So there's things like bubble sorts, merge sorts, quick sorts, right? Those are different kinds of strategies or different kinds of sorts. And it built a strategy pattern around it so that you can actually do something like, I want to sort it. Here's my data, and I want to, let's say, test, or I want to do through different kinds of sorts for different kinds of data or different amounts of data. Bubble sort's really good on a small amounts of data. Merge sort is good for huge amounts of data, but it's not good for small. But as a developer, all you have to do is set the strategy, right? Whether you want quick sort, bubble sort, heap sort, and the sorter always works the same. You don't know which one you're using. So that's exactly what a strategy pattern is. It abstracts away the mechanism that you're using and gives you a bunch of strategies you can apply to whatever you're doing. And I hit dot. And I don't think I'm going to have time to get another example, but let's see if we can get into the pull request. go take a look at the data. And here's the test written all in Python. Okay, so if you're familiar with Python, here's the different strategies. A DEF is a function like in PowerShell, or like um, setting up a function in C#. Self is a parameter. Uh, and then here's the quick sort strategy. Here's the sort merge sort, and so on. And then here's how it makes it work. And what's really interesting is that, let's say you even come across a repo. I do this often. I'll come across a bunch of code that I like, and maybe it'll be written in some other language, but I know it works, right? The author of it has done tests and proven it out. And what I'll do is I'll actually grab that repo, put it back up here, either use it in the IDE straight away, right? And then what I'll do is tell it to port it to my favorite language, port it to C#, port it to F#. And it goes, and what's really great is it taking existing code bases and porting them is quite excellent. Now, it's not a magic bullet, right? This, depending on the size that you're doing, it's going to, the bigger the bigger the database, or the bigger the repo, the bigger the challenges are. And there's different strategies that you want to do. You're not going to go try to take 100,000 lines of code of Ruby and say, port that to C#. Laura says, I let AI burn me the other day. It processed multiple tables in a cursor, but is okay, SQL stuff, but only changed some of them, not what was expected. Got to be careful with vibe coding. It should have had the IDE check the code using a different model than the one that created the code. Absolutely. And just quickly on that note, we'll kick it off. Excuse me, I'll kick it off, but we probably won't stay for it. I'm going to close everything here, and I'm going to get rid of everything here. And then let's clear out this. I'm going to switch models. I'm going to switch to Sonnet 3.5, and I'm going to say something like, okay, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to create something called plan.md, right, for a markdown file. You don't have to call it plan. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it next features, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to say implement, let's see what's good, in PowerShell, a script that will choose the max number from a list of numbers from an array. So that's awesome. And it's actually helping me write GitHub inside of IDEs. GitHub Copilot is actually helping me. It's giving me suggestions to what I want to write next. I'm going to say use test-driven development to ensure the script works correctly. Write the tests first. And I'm going to leave the spelling. Write the tests first. Run the tests. And adjust the script or tests until all tests pass. Okay. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say implement the plan. Now notice the plan is already here. So that's one of the nice features of these IDEs. If you have an open file, it makes it part of the context. You can drag and drop it to ensure it, right? And I'm just going to tell it to implement the plan. And we're going to kick this off. It's going to take a bit, right? So I wanted to write it. It's a simple function to a certain degree, but it's not easy, right? To figure out what's the largest number in an array or in a list of numbers, and then also to test it. I didn't think it was going to be done that quick. So the first thing it does, awesome. It followed my spec, so to speak, and it said, all right, and it implemented a bunch of tests. Right? Return the max number, handle negative numbers. Super. That's always a problem with this thing. Like when I write these things, I used to give this as a test when I used to hire developers. Let's say continue. It's going to run and now I used to give this as an example to the person doing the interview, and knowing full well they would forget to do negative numbers. And that was good because I would be able to talk about that. Handle a single number. These are boundary conditions. Awesome. So it figured out the correct tests to apply, and it actually wrote the code, and then it ran the tests for me, right? And then it says, notice, I see we have one failing test, right? So now it's interacting with the console, determining the errors, and we'll see if it actually goes back, and it's going to go back and try to either fix the test or fix the code. And we'll see if it gets caught in a loop or if it actually figures out, oh, I see what the code was the problem. I see what the tests were the problem. Let me keep iterating until we get there. Still doesn't have it correct for whatever reason. This is great demos today. This usually goes through, it's, yeah, I see the issue now. The problem is that PowerShell is preventing the empty array from even reaching our function. Let me modify the test case. Cool. So it's actually, is it thinking? I don't know. Now it's gonna, so we can let this run. It's no big deal. And then it even apologizes. I apologize for the error. Let me fix the test. So we'll see how this goes, but we're good. If I had a nickel for every I see the issue now, well, this is not, we're not syntax monkeys anymore, right? We're not like, run this function and do this. Now, I did a really simple plan, right? Um, you like that, Aaron? Excellent. Um, this is a really simple plan. What I typically do is I say, I do this, then I say, flesh out the plan, reflect on the plan, and I usually get a 1 to 2 page document. From that, this thing goes forward and nails it. Typically on the code agents on the GitHub repo, go forward and nail it as well because it does much more planning and does much more reflection on what it's trying to do. So I hate to say this, Kevin, and I've been in the same condition, like right here, right? We're going through a bunch of things and we're not getting the answers that we want, and we're still failing for whatever. Are we still getting the same one? And I am using Claude Sonnet 3.5, which is a little older. I am using the IDE, which doesn't have as much sauce as the Copilot does on the GitHub, right? So I would need to up my prompting capabilities, right? So back to context model and prompt. So I would probably change the model to 4.1. I would probably think I have enough context, although I would like to should have done a better plan. But these are all things we need to begin to learn about so we can get results, so we get away from saying, oh, I'm sorry, I found a problem. And I don't know particularly what you're doing. Um, so, yep, and Claude Code, new planning mode. Yeah. So Kevin points out that Claude Code, the new version, it just dropped the planning mode. You step in the right direction as you repeatedly say, it will only get better. Yeah. It's not only a step in the right direction, but the planning mode has been researched for like over a year and a half, 2 years. And Hugging Face initially did it, and they started showing why this stuff makes so much sense. So I don't think, right? So two things. One, this is not a limitation. This not getting it right is not because the environment's wrong. It's because we're not setting it up to do the proper planning. Claude Code is now taking it where it does it for you. It doesn't do it for you, but it makes it much easier. But you need to learn how to integrate and interact with the planning mode so you can get what you want. If you don't learn how to interact with the planning mode, it's not gonna give you the results that you want. And you're going to get back to this. I'm sorry, it didn't work. As we're seeing, this is going. Now I'm down to 0 tests passed. So that's awesome. Again, I would have done different. I usually do this and say, flesh out the plan and whatnot. So I don't think it's a step in the right direction. It takes a while to implement all this new agentic workflow, UX and DX, right? And I do say a lot. This is the worst it's going to be. If I dedicated a half hour down to do this demo, I would do it differently, and I wouldn't just say do a max number. I would show you how I vibe coded this whole thing here with the new aging code, right? This thing is what I built was not, it was more conceptual. So I vibe coded the entire PSM1. It's got 15 functions in it that does a bunch of different things to deal with the PRs and the code agent and setting it and not setting it and looking things up. I purely vibe coded it. But I did a much different planning approach to it, which is why new agent code sets everything up correctly. So it's really important. Oh, yeah. So I don't see when it comes back and says it's sorry or it does make a mistake, I don't see it as a failure of the process. I see it as I need to do something different to help guide this a little bit better. We were doing this 2, 3 years ago. We were experimenting with things like, well, what if we send JSON in that does this and tell it that we want the output JSON to look like that. And then we got wildly amazing results. And we weren't the only ones doing it out in the wild, but the researchers were doing it, and that was what being fed back, and that's what OpenAI was doing and Anthropic was doing, which is why the models and the user experiences in Claude is. Hey, Aaron, thanks for dropping in. Awesome. Yeah, I would like to hear about how you tweak your models with this. It'd be great. So, you know, it's taken a while for folks to blend all this stuff in, as well as, and Cursor and Windsurf, the AI, that IDE, and they've been pushing the boundaries, and Microsoft has been investing as well to do all this kind of stuff. So again, yeah, we're in chapter 7, 6, 5 out of 100 chapter book, and so when I see this kind of stuff happen, I don't look for, I don't sit here and do this on my production code in the sense of I don't go, hey, let me try this on production. No, I experiment with this in my own time so I can learn how the tools work so that when it does come time to production work, I would sit down and go, okay, I want to have this get done fast, or I want to have AI work it out, and I'm going to do a planning mode and this mode and that mode, and the results that I get are absolutely incredible from what I see. And yes, that's anecdotal. But yeah, and what's really slick about it is, which is what I like about the new agent stuff, I can spin up any kind of concept. I can ask it to do I even let it do things like you can say path and you can send a file up. I can actually give it a bunch of code and say, hey, go do A, B, C, and D to it. It creates a new repo, brand new workspace, does everything, sets up the Copilot, it runs. I can go out for a walk and whatnot and check it from my phone. And if I don't like it, I can come back and delete it, right? So throwing away code, really simple. Changing my mindset to like, how can I get this done quickly just to get some ideas? And then I might take what I find in Code Agent and what it does, take parts of it and drop it in here. And then I'm one step closer to what I want. And then I can refine it while I'm inside of this. So now while this is failing, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to stop it and I'm going to change the model. Don't know it's going to work. And I'm going to say retry. So I just changed. So I hit stop. So it's not continuing. I'm going to keep everything. I now change to GPT-4 and I'm going to click retry. This may not work, but it's something to add to your tool belt, right? That, oh, I can do something, I can stop something and then choose a different model to maybe get a different result. The error is due to multiple IT blocks in a single line. And somebody said before, Lars mentioned that he was doing some stuff and Cursor did XYZ and maybe having another model boom, done. So having another model do its thing and check the work might have been a better approach. Absolutely. So now there we go. So I just changed over to GPT-4.1, 3.5 is an older model, who was doing a bunch of stuff, getting it wrong. And it looks like I let a newer model, 4.1, step in, retry the process, and it fixed everything. Okay, so I think that's a good demo. It's not always about getting the answers. It's about, well, what are we really doing with these tools, right? And one of the things that the Copilot does, the code agent up on GitHub, is it's got even more agentic intelligence. I'm not even sure if, people are like, oh, it's not intelligent, it's not alive. I don't know. But it's got more capability because of more tools and more special sauce and different kinds of prompting and different kinds of way it works. So it doesn't get into what it just saw in the 3.5 with Sonnet or Claude. And it will switch out models, or you can tell it to do that in your issue. So a lot of stuff that we looked at. MCPs are on the list. We didn't take a look directly how to work with those. Those are coming hot and heavy, and they're going to make life even easier. Where they're going to bring more capability to these systems, and in addition, writing your own MCPs are not difficult, and it's good to go figure out how to go walk through that minefield. I've been through it, and I'm fascinated by what it can do. And it's a whole nother way of doing things, which is even better. And you can bring some really interesting capability to the work that you do. So I went a little over. Hope you don't mind. And if you have any questions or thoughts or If not, hope to see you Thursday. And then I have two more of these next week. And yeah, if you drop in on those, it'd be great. And if you can then drop in notes, like I'm sure Lars is going to come back and say, hey, can we add headers across X, Y, and Z? Or maybe we can do some cursors or whatnot. I just want to make one final point. I never mind, Doug. Thanks. You're welcome. Awesome. The So even to the cursor stuff, like one of the things why I did this, do tests first. This is a technique I learned in the 90s, right? When it first came out. We used to do testing all the time. And then folks in the industry, heavy duty influencers, I won't drop names, but they were like, hey, you know what? You should first write a test before your code even exists, and then watch the test fail, and then write the code to make it work. And back then it was like, what in the heck are you talking about? And then it became one of the concepts was red-green testing. And it is a psychological process to it that's like, oh, if I can make it fail and then I can make it succeed, that helps me stay motivated and get the dopamine hit that I'm moving in a good direction. And then when you're done doing a bunch of stuff, you have a bunch of tests that give you the safety net of where you were. Giving that concept to an AI, write unit tests first. I don't know, this thing was trained on tons of public source stuff, but why it's so good at understanding that approach, I don't know if it was reinforced learning or fine-tuned. I'm not sure how that is, but this is a way to get really successful at it. And again, I used we had it ran into the problem of it not doing the correct stuff, the tests failing. I was using Claude Sonnet 3.5, and I jumped up to a model that's only been a couple of months old, and 4.1 saw the problem, saw the syntax errors that Claude couldn't, and solved the problem. And by writing the tests, I know that I am always in a better place than not. And then at the end of it, even if it's not working, I can then go through and say, okay, this is not about giving it a prompt and then walking away and not knowing how it works. Vibe coding, I love the word. I do it all the time, but I'm a very disciplined. If you do vibe coding correctly, if that's such a way, you do it in a disciplined way. You start with a Git process. And after and that's one of the things that's cool about Cursor and Windsurf, which we'll see in VS Code soon probably, is that you can say, write the test first, make sure it's green. When you hit green, check it in, right? That's the process. That's what I've been doing for 30 years. It's an amazing way to do things, and it's completely different from people who've not done it. But you give it to AI, and oh my God, you just see crazy stuff. And again, it's the three principles. Context, model, prompt. I changed the model. We had the context. Things were good. Awesome. Glad folks like it to go longer. Yeah, and again, some people do say to me offline, they go, hey, I was going to ask a question, but I was a little, didn't want to jump in there with a question that wasn't really in the flow, or what seemed like a simple question. There's no simple questions. This stuff is brand new. Love the questions because it can take us down a different set of rabbit holes. And I learn from it as well because, I've been doing this way too long. So I'm in my, my path that I've dug a groove in. And while this is really super cool, there's other things that can be done which are awesome. And I think somebody, if like on the first one, said, hey, I'm trying to sell my house and for sale by owner. And I was trying to get AI to help me with that. And we went down that rabbit hole, and I was like, awesome. And the best thing, I have no clue about for sale by owner stuff. And, we both pair prompted, right? I typed in some stuff, and then I'd say, so what do you think about it? He goes, oh, well, this is good. Let's go down this route. And then I would put a prompt in, or I would take what he said in the chat and I'd copy paste in. And then we actually built a plan that he took that helped him have a checklist of how to do for sale by owner. So this is not limited. We can do it with medical stuff. My daughter sent me the sonograms of my grandson, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And typically I would look up I would try to read, the image she sent me, and I'd look at the information, and there would be sonogram details, and I didn't know what the acronyms were, and I would look them up and try to find out. I just pasted that image right into ChatGPT and said, "What the heck is this?" And it came back in seconds, telling me all the details about what's captured in that sonogram and what all the TLAs were. And it's like, okay, this thing, we're in a new world, and just like I try to take that image, which I was successful with about show drives, you can I grab people's images that they post their code up, and I drop it in here, and I go, what do you think? You can, on a piece of paper, you can sketch out a UI if you wanted to, like, and then take a picture of it, upload it, and see what it does with it. And it does extremely well. Again, context model prompt. And if you change your prompts up, that's what's really slick about these environments, right? You can sit here and have a so sometimes what's cool is I start in the ask mode, right? So it's not going to edit my files. It's not going to create files. It's not going to delete files. It's not going to change code. And I can start brainstorming about stuff. I can start brainstorming and say, well, what do you think about this file and this file? Should I do this and this and this? And have this whole conversation. That becomes part of the context. Then I'll switch over to edit mode or agent mode, and I'll say, implement what we just talked about in the last sentence or in the last paragraph or the last concept we just discussed. And then it goes to work, right? And then if I don't like the way it did it, I can undo, and then I can say, well, you know what? Change over to Claude Sonnet 4, one of those latest models, which is a little bit too aggressive for my taste, but it's really amazing. And then I can compare both, right? So this is how we need to learn the tools. And that when we see it, say, hey, I'm sorry and whatnot. Don't mean to harp on you, Kevin, if you're still here. But when we see these things that say errors, it's a good time for us to take stock and say, well, is it AI, or is it me, or is it the context or whatnot? We're in a whole new world trying to figure things out. So there's ways to tweak it. And, always back to that same point, this is the worst it'll ever be. Uh, and I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news. But the other thing I always say is AI is not going to replace you, but someone who knows how to use it will. So that's why I do this in my off time, so to speak. And I practice with it, like, oh, let me try a different model. It wasn't getting it correctly. Let me stop it in the middle. I know I can do that. I know the context is preserved. I know I can change models and then say retry. Knowing those types of things, when I get into a production mode, if I'm going to do that, I'm much more comfortable with the tools, what they can do, what they can't do, what I'm not going to try to make it do. And, I'd love to go with Lars and figure out what was going on with the cursor stuff, and how do you build the scaffolding so that you can get results that you want, or if this thing goes off into the weeds, how you can keep it from damaging all the stuff that happened. Too many people out there go, oh yeah, I tried this thing, and I tried agent mode, and I did a bunch of stuff, and I looked at it, and then it took me 3 weeks to figure out what it did in a half hour. Well, you did it wrong. Um, did you give it too much context? Did you give it to a prompt that was overblown? Did you checkpoint your work on a regular basis? Did you do it step by step? Or did you just say, hey, I'm going to make a cake. So it says I need eggs and flour and this and baking soda and the other thing and the sugar and that. And let me just dump it all into a bowl and stir. Oh, it didn't make a cake. Yeah, it's a layered process. Um, and it's going to get better. And it's going to get like where we are today in 2025, crazy where we were a year ago. We saw this potentially coming. We could play with a bunch of different parts and go, oh my goodness. Aider and Kleinbot came out as a CLI before Claude Code, and did amazing stuff. And we were, before that, we were seeing like, hey, we can go in this direction. This is a worthwhile process. And now here we are a year later where you can do this and watch everything track. In my GitHub stuff, I can track everything that's going on. I can see the PR. I can go into the details, and I can go, oh, why'd you make that decision? Why'd you make that decision? Oh, let me try this again. And so it's just becoming easier and faster and whatnot. I'm kind of afraid to see where this is going to be in 2026. It's going to do some really crazy stuff. And you're not going to be able to sit back and go, make me a cake. That's, probably not yet. Maybe that'll be in a couple of years. Um, but I'm not looking for a Star Trek type experience. I guess I'd like one where I can say, I want a Vulcan meal with this kind of a, you know, Klingons type wine to drink, whatever it's going to be, and the replicator just does it for me. That's awesome, but that's not how it works. So enough of my rambling. Anything else? So I'm gonna do another one Thursday. We got some more things on the plate. If you'd like to see me redo things on Thursday, if you join up. Head over to my YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell. You'll know when I publish those videos and recordings as well as next week's. And keep an eye out for July. I will probably announce that I'm going to do the MCP workshop and see how many people will be interested, not just, in a broader sense. MCPs are definitely hot. Not only are they hot, they're really cool, super useful, really powerful, and it's great to see how to actually build them. And it's not as hard as you think. All right, folks, enjoy your Tuesday. Thanks for joining. See you Thursday, Matrix. You're welcome.